City of Bones. I knew I was going to have to review this book eventually, but I hate thinking about it. Like, literally reading... Well, I didn't actually read the book, because this is what happened. In a class I had to take Myth in the Modern Mind for the honors segment. We each had to, like, it was me and about me and 3 other people. We each had to pick a separate text. It could be like a movie or a book to read, and we have to write about it. So my text, I picked for them to watch certain episodes of Sailor Moon. Another person picked Sandman. Another person picked Spirited Away. And one of my friends picked City of Bones, the first book in the Immortal Instruments series. And I was like, you know, I was never going to read this book because I've heard of all the mixed things. But, alright, I'll download the audiobook. I liked Clockwork Angel. What could be wrong with City of Bones? Oh my god, so many things. Okay, so what is better than City of Bones? Let's see. Twilight. Twilight is better than City of Bones. Personal Demons. Better than City of Bones. House of Night is almost better. House of Night is better than City of Bones. Evermore is better than City of Bones. Because the thing about it is, I have listened to, right this moment, 3 of the House of Night books on audiobook. And while a lot of them have been dumb and insulting and just plain old stupid, I have never been so bored listening to an audiobook as I have with City of Bones. And you know what? Sometimes I feel like all the shit I talk about Twilight, I don't regret it, but I wish I had read City of Bones so I could be like, you know what, Twilight is bad, but at least it's its own shit. I mean, there are elements of other vampire books that we've of course alluded to, but let's face it, all vampire books that are on some level copying each other for years and years to come. But City of Bones is almost as bad as Aragon in the level of stuff it's stealing from to make this piece of shit. Cassandra Clare is very infamous in the young adult genre because basically she got popular for writing this Draco trilogy for the Harry Potter fanfiction, which she says that she didn't know was fanfiction even though she published it on fanfiction.net. Like, why are you trying to be sneaky around? You wrote fanfiction, so what? Who cares? But she got in trouble because basically she plagiarized whole scenes and texts from, you know, Buffy and other things in her fanfiction. I don't understand why you would plagiarize in fanfiction anyway. It's not like it's original work to begin with. You just put a little disclaimer. I know nothing except the characters. I mean, it's not that complicated. So she got kind of in trouble. There was this whole outrage when she got brought down. Like, oh, how could you do this? You guys are such dicks. Whatever. And then Holly Black, who was a writer I really like, she read some of Cassandra Clare's work. Her agent met her agent, and then she got a career. If only that could happen to the rest of us. And so she writes this series, and anyone reading this book can practically smell Harry Potter in it. Like, I've read some of the fanfiction, and it's just like, yes, I totally see every connection in this book. Clary is like Hermione and Ginny. Jace is so Draco Malfoy. And it's like, Cassandra Clare invented the Draco with leather pants trope, so like every male protagonist she has fits that Draco with leather pants trope, and it's just kind of just like, really? And the thing, this book is so bad, it made me dislike Clockwork Angel. Like, as soon as I finished reading City of Bones and I looked at Clockwork Angel and I realized it's the exact same plot, I was done. The same plot line from City of Bones, that same first book, is almost note for note in terms of what goes on. The same thing that happened in Clockwork Angel. And people are like, well, it's a prequel. That doesn't mean it has to be the exact same plot. Okay? That's not an excuse. So what is this book about? Alright, it's about this girl named Clary. Clary. That's a real original name. Who lives in Brooklyn, Park Slope. And she, you know, one day she goes to a club with her friend, who is the unfortunate friend, and she meets this guy named Jace, and she realizes that there are like fairies and stuff in the world. Her mom gets kidnapped by like some evil guy named Valentine / Voldemort, and she has to like save her mother from like bullshit. So she teams up with Jace, and they become part of this like really jerk ass institute called the Institute, and they fight and they're warriors called Shadowhunters, even though they don't hunt shadows. And like they have to stop Valentine from stealing some cup, an immortal instrument, because he can make warriors, and this is gonna be bad. So yeah, it didn't leave that much of an impression. Basically, what irritates me about this entire book is that all of it is... What irritates me about this book is how legitimately the main lead is an idiot, and it's written very poorly, and there are no characters in this book who you really like. I mean, sort of. I kind of like Alex. I don't even know if that's his name. I read this book a while ago, and I don't feel like looking back because it really wasn't worth the time. Alex, you know, I kind of like him. So gay. You can obviously tell that he's gay and in love with Jace from before it's even revealed. It's not really much of a spoiler, because if you're reading and looking in context, it's really obvious that he's gay and in love with Jace. But every character in this book is basically a note for note. So, Clary is just an aggravating character because she's so friggin' dumb. And she really serves no purpose throughout this book. She's just there. We discover like midway she has some kind of power, you know, which doesn't really do much. And her basic premise there is to be the chick. And she's supposed to be like the relatable chick. We're all supposed to be like, oh, you know, she's a normal kid. She just wants to be whatever. But no, she's a snob. She's a snob. She's uppity. The Initiative, which is and the Shadowhunters, who's supposed to be the group we're supposed to root for, and the heroes, they're complete idiots. They're classist, even almost racist against like the downworlder people. So Clary, as soon as she joins the little group, she immediately becomes equally as racist. There's there's a character who she's friend with, I forget the name, the werewolf guy. And she starts calling him derogatory names and whatever, just after like, what, a few days of being part of the Initiative. She's already taking on the terms, calling him like a filthy downloader. I'm like, please, cut that shit out, bitch, okay? Just stop. Just really stop. Oh, I'm sorry, I said I wouldn't say the word bitch. Sorry, I hate that. I'm trying not to be good and not say the word bitch a lot. But she's just there. And what I dislike the most about her is how much they try to make her the average girl in this situation. And I'm just like, you're not the average girl. You are not. Stop trying to make yourself seem like you're some kind of lower class person. Because basically, she's from... There's a character called Isabel in the book, who is basically, her and her brother Alec are the rich kids. You know, they're rich, they come from a long legacy of, you know, great shadow hunters. Their families is really rich. So we're supposed to be like, oh, you guys are snobs or whatever. I'm reading this book like, look, I understand that they're supposed to be all hoity-toity and whatever, but let's break this down here. You live in Park Slope. For those of you who do not know, Park Slope is like the best area in New York City. Like everyone always talks about, oh, the Upper East Side, Upper West Side. No. Park Slope is the area ranked, I think, highest on places to live. You know, it's got great schools, great education, beautiful houses. She lives in a brownstone. Do you know how much it costs to live in a damn brownstone in Park Slope? So this is not like Brooklyn, as if we're written in the friggin' hood. I live in the hood of Brooklyn. She lives in a nice Park Slope with all the little rich people, who are really well off. Her mom's supposed to be some sort of artist. I'm just like, yeah, that's she's an artist, alright. That's how come she can afford to live in Park Slope. It's just, I hate that kind of idea. Like, I have no problem with reading about rich characters or like upper class characters who have upper class things. I mean, I watch Gossip Girl, I watch most of the CW shows, that's all that they have in there. Rich Caucasian people in nice houses with nice things. I don't mind that. It isn't a big deal for me, but don't pretend that you don't have those things and try to sell me this whole idea that we're supposed to relate to you because you're not as rich as them. You still rich. So you don't have a legacy, but then we find out that she does have a legacy, so that part is just kind of null and void. But she's annoying, but actually the most annoying character in this is Jace, because he's just a pompous ass. And I really hate this whole idea, and it just frustrates me. And I notice this more and more with myself. There's this idea that guys who are rude to you are flirting with you. And I'm just like, no, that's not funny. I hate being patronized. Patronizing like the you just turn off for me. Like, if you don't mock me, don't be like, oh, you said a big word. How good is that for you? That's literally what he says to her when she says a certain big word. I'm just like, what are you doing? You're an ass. You know, every time he speaks, he just is just pompous, rude, condescending, completely condescending. He treats her like a child, and he's supposed to have this kind of like, oh, I'm a playboy, having all this swag because he's got issues. I don't care if he's got issues. Don't deflect your issues on me. I didn't do shit to you. It's not my fault. Your parents are dead. I didn't kill them, okay? He's just rude, inconsiderate, doesn't care about anyone but himself. He's this whole playboy routine, which is supposed to be like, oh, supposed to hide his depth. He has no depth. And everyone's supposed to be like, oh, but he has like a tortured past. So what? So does Batman, okay? Get over it. You know, you're the only person whose parents are dead. It frustrates me when people use a sad past as an excuse for your character to be complete douche. I mean, yes, there are reasons to be upset when you lose people you love. I understand that. That's fine. I'm not denouncing that. If I lost my mother, I'd be devastated. But he is not. But he doesn't even. He uses everything as an excuse, and then he tries to act as though he's like not. He's like, don't feel sorry for me. Don't pity me. Don't treat me any differently. Fine, I won't. I'm not gonna feel sympathy for you if you act like an idiot. Second of all, what's wrong with this story besides the main characters being completely incompetent is exactly how boring this story is. I mean, stuff happens in this book. There are legitimate, like, action scenes in this book. There are, like, chase scenes. There's whole things about trying to change people back from rats into human beings. But it's not interesting. It legitimately isn't. I listened to this entire audiobook, and there were parts that I was completely bored. There were scenes where it's supposed to be, like, in this mission to go find, you know, Clary's friend who gets accidentally turned into a rat. And that entire scene and the scenes that came after it, boring to me. I mean, I'm sure people love it because on Goodreads it's at like 4.17 stars out of 5. Don't know how that happened. I certainly did not assist that score. But it's completely dry. Nothing, it's note for note. Bam, 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 bam. Here's a little scene, here's a little action sequence. It's completely and totally dry, and I have no interest in anything that's going on. I was bored, and as much as I've read books like Evermore and House of Night with nothing going on in them, I was never bored because it was funny, because there was an element of just me enjoying the characters for being dumb at the most. I don't enjoy Clary being dumb. I don't enjoy Jace being dumb because there's nothing, because like, unlike, you know, Zoe from House of Night, stuck up, rude, but she's a proactive lead, so I kind of give her a little bit of points for it. But that entire book is written in a way where it is completely and utterly funny. And I don't mean good funny, I mean funny to make, it's fun to make fun of. Evermore, there are characters in the Evermore series that I like, legitimately like. There are very few, there's like 2. One of them is dead now, and I'm very, very upset about that. But at the same time, I have fun listening to those books because they're dumb and they're fun and there's some things that I can like about it, and I have no problem reading it. Now, City of Bones, hated the entire listening experience, legitimately. And the worst thing is how much it rips off of other things. And I mean not just little things. I mean she's taking plot elements from some of the most popular things out right now. I mean, not just Harry Potter, because when you listen to the story of like Valentine and stuff like that, you know it's Voldemort. You know it from the get-go. But I mean the ending where they have this whole twist with Jace and Clary and Valentine. And let me tell you something. There is no way this just came out of her head. There is no way that she just thought, oh, this would make an interesting story, because it doesn't. There is nothing creative about this. It is literally a ripoff of one of the most, you know, biggest twists in sci-fi history, that I just look at this thing, I'm just like, you completely ripped that off. There's nothing you can say to convince me that you just wrote this idea because it made sense to you. This was just to create angst and to create some sort of drama for the next 2 books in this series, and it did not work. It literally, when I read this part, I'm just like, alright, that's really dumb. When I listened to it, it was even worse. And you know something would be bad? When the spoiler doesn't even make you as pissed off as the actual thing happening in the books. Like, I knew it was going to happen, but the way it was just put into the books was completely and utterly stupid. And then I know what happens in the other books that totally counteracts that spoiler. So that on top of the spoiler itself makes me realize this woman is just not a good writer. I don't mean to insult Cassandra Clare, but in my opinion, she's not a good writer. This book is stupid. It has horrible characters, poor pacing. She's ripped off so many things. I mean, she owes J.K. Rowling and George Lucas, like, straight up checks. She just send it in, because she's completely ripping off other people in this piece, and it's atrocious. And not to mention, everything in this is just like, it's like so much like she's trying to just make herself seem so intelligent. Like, everything has to be like people's last name, about how, like, Valentine's last name means, you know, morning star, and it's like this heavy-handed Paradise Lost, you know, illusions that, it's like, it's not done in a clever way. You know, name dropping is one of those things where I hate it overall, but there are so many ways to make it interesting that when people don't do it, I can easily go to something else. I can, like, point to Neil Gaiman's American Gods. Like, if you want to name drop and use, you know, literature as an illusion, look at American Gods. They did it, and it works. You do it, you're just doing it to show off how much you know about literature. Whoop-de-doo. Anyone with Wikipedia can do that. It's so frustrating. And then she writes, like, weird similes that don't make any sense. She'll write lines that, like, literally, there's, in the opening scene, there is a part where, they're standing in line for a club called Pandemonium. Ha! You're so clever. And there's this one guy in the front of the line, and they're supposedly, he's in the front. There are 50 people in between Clary and this guy. She looks over and she can see the green of his eyes. I'm like, you're at a club on a line and there are 50 people in between you and this guy, and you can see what color his eyes are from all the way over there? What the hell? What the hell? And let me reiterate how stupid Clary is. Okay, so she sees the guy in the front who ended up being a fairy or whatever. The guy in the front has a knife, and he's going with some girl wearing some really stupid outfit. Like, it's this long thing where all her arms are covered, and she's got, like, boots all the way up to her thighs, and a white dress that covers everything. I'm just like, that's not sexy, that's whatever. But she goes to follow him when he goes to get this girl. She, like, tells her friend, go, Simon is his name, Simon. She's like, go call the police. She goes to follow him, and during the whole thing, you know, she's listening to everything. She's like, oh my god, is this a gang thing? Is this a gang thing? I'm like, that's how I knew she wasn't from Brooklyn, because what does she do? She just keeps listening, and then she tries to get involved, saying, no, you can't kill him. That's bad. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Do you not have a cell phone? Call 911. Get out of there. And that's it. You're done. You're done. But no, she sits there, listens to their entire conversation, so that she knows that, one, it cannot be a gang, but then when stuff gets worse, she just immediately jumps herself into the situation. And people are like, that's heroic. I'm like, no, that's stupid. That's stupid. And that's something where someone has absolutely no street smarts. Because let's just say this. Say you're someone and you grow up in, like, Brooklyn or whatever. If it was me and I see this kind of situation where I think something skeevy is going on, I'm not going to call my friend in a crowded club with a lot of noise and be like, oh, get the security guard. I'm going to go myself to get the security guard. Because let me tell you, when she tells Simon to do this, I don't know how long, but it takes him about 20 minutes to get from where he is to get the security guard to go do this. And this is supposedly a club for, like, adults, teens, everybody or something like that. I'm just like, one, it doesn't exist. Most clubs in the city are 21 and over, so I don't know how you can get a bunch of, like, what, 16, 17-year-olds to get in here. But maybe it's kind of special high-class club that I don't go to or whatever, but whatever. So it takes like 20 minutes for Simon to go get security to come tell this thing. You go somewhere in Brooklyn, you tell your security, you see some guy with a knife going out with some girl, especially some white girl, you think it's going to take him 20 minutes to come out there? Whatever. The whole book is just completely idiotic. There are so many points where you're reading it and you're just like, what? It legitimately boggles the mind how badly this thing is put together. And it's sad because it's so popular. There's going to be a movie made out of it, and oh my god, they picked that guy from Camelot to do it. I'm so sorry. City of Bones fans. I know you guys wanted Alex Petty for like a boss, but he wasn't getting that role because he is a snob. But he's the perfect Jace because he looks like he's an asshole just like Jace is. But this book is like so popular. It's got so many fans. You know, Stephanie Meyer said it was like an awesome book. She actually bashed Wicked Lovely to praise this book, and you know what? I'm not surprised because this is the kind of stuff that she would like. But this book is not good. I don't think it's good. I mean, there are plenty of people who definitely swear by this book and love it, and there have been people who told me that I should ignore the criticism that people have given it and my bias against that whole Stephanie Meyer thing and read this book, and I am sorry. If you like this book, I complete things to you. That's fine. That's your opinion. I hate this book. I think it's horrible. I think if you want to check this out, get it from the library or something. Do not pay for this book at all. This is horrible. It's a ripoff. I hate books that copy other things and are still bad than something that's bad, but it's at least it's its own bullshit. Like, Twilight is its own bullshit. This is just taking someone else's good work and putting bullshit on top of it. This is horrible, and while I can see why people like it, it's not for me. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, and I think that there are plenty of books that are better. Like, honestly, I would recommend Evermore before I would ever recommend this. And you know how I feel about Evermore. So, City of Bone, stop, you know. And I'm not reading the next two, and I'm not reading any of it. I'm not reading anything by her ever again. No, my brain cannot handle it. This was a painful experience. Never doing it again. And I mean, I will finish reading House of Night, and I will finish reading Evermore, the series, but I will never touch Cassandra Clare again. Done.